Good evening. You're listening to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Tonight's episode, Xtreme TV. Tonight we're tackling Twin Peaks Season 1, Episode 6, Cooper's Dreams. I'm here with Professor Pixel, who's been the companion with me, much like Audrey and Cooper have had a relationship. So have he and I, but in a purely bromance sort of way, almost like Keanu Reeves in Point Break, for anybody that's also a film fan of that. Both came out around the same time, and I've got to tell you here, Pixel, we get a little different side of Cooper because he starts off being a little grouchy bear, and he almost brushes Audrey off until he finds out she's 18, and then the flirting ensues. What did you like about this opening scene?
Well, we start out with Dale waking up, and first thing he does, he takes his tape recorder, and he's talking into it and making a note, saying basically how miserable he is tonight because while most of his trip has been amazingly pleasant, there are Norwegians there, and they are singing and stomping, and everybody in the hotel is suffering. If Cooper's room is any measurement by which we judge these newcomers, when he's sitting there, the first thing he does is he asks for coffee, and even then, he's not happy. He has to have like 3 cups while he's sitting there. He drinks it down, holds it up, and gets a refill. And Audrey comes up, and he's just like, I'm really not feeling good today. She's trying to explain to him how she got a job, and going into the details of that for the case. And he's like, I just have time for coffee. And you're right. She does end up slipping in there that she is 18 because, well, he asks, how old are you even? Wednesday's a school night, if I remember. And I feel like that's a very important scene because
Yes.
up until this point, he's been keeping her at a distance, but he's been entertaining her, I suppose.
Well, she's been polite. She's been civil, despite being flirty. It's been done in a very respectful manner, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to me, I just want to take a moment to reemphasize about Audrey, because this scene actually seems to me goes pretty quick. Audrey obviously is dressed like the femme fatale I mentioned before, how she dresses clean cut. She wears form-fitting sweaters, but not trashy ones. She doesn't look like a tramp or anything like that. Just an incredible throwback look to the 30s, 40s, 50s, all the glorious women out there that were glamorized in some just natural beauty sort of way. She has it here. She does it so well. She doesn't walk. She just kind of like floats a little bit whenever that weird jazzy music's playing and all that. So this is definitely one of the funnest things that I'm getting behind, because I go, oh yeah, it's a dark story, but watching these two interact, I want to see Cooper and her hook up, but we'll see whether or not that happens. I doubt it, but you never know in a show like this, especially with how dark it is. Maybe they're a bit more adult-like. Definitely a lot different than today's types of television. The only other thing in this scene here too, and I bring it up because it doesn't seem like it's much other than a quick plot development, is that when Cooper's leaving, he passes by that guy Jerry, who people who are fans of 80s movies and television recognize him as that BC level sort of dude, where he's just having a great time. But he goes into Benjamin's office and he's talking to him about stuff like, oh yeah, I'm in love with this really tall chick and she got me this leg of lamb, and it's just all nonsense. And he's like, hey, look, we got these people in here, they're interested in all that. Maybe we can seal the deal by taking them to, and he kind of puts his hand over his eye, so it's like the one-eyed Jacks thing. So we know we're going to end up seeing this place. We saw it briefly a few episodes ago. I think the second episode, and we know what goes on there. It's the place that Audrey describes where women work and where men like to go. So we know what that's all about. Again, our brain can fill in that stuff. We don't need it to be so out in front told or whatever. It's the hint of all that stuff that fills in that makes the show pretty good too. They leave a lot to your imagination for it. But the thing here is we get Leland Palmer, Audrey, or Laura's father, coming in, and he wants to do something, and he breaks down, and it's getting so horrible that it's like, okay, Leland, you're going to come in. How are you going to break down this time in this scene here? So there's really not much to it. But like I say, the scene happens quickly. They then go to where the music changes after Audrey, after this scene here, where they're still in Jacques' apartment. And we get a little information about him that, oh, he's actually from Canada because Twin Peaks is supposed to be right over the border, as they talk about, or whatever. And he was bartending at the bar there. But of course, he's been missing, and the other guy that we know is dead, jumped bail and all that. But they're saying, well, it's not Laura's blood on the shirt that they found, but it might be Jacques. And it's interesting because, to your point, Cooper's kind of a grouch, and even though he flirts real briefly for Audrey, and here he's a grouchy bear, he's getting coffee, donuts. You get a lot of that being focused on by the camera, which I think is kind of neat in some of these scenes here too. But they spend a few minutes in a couple of scenes here in Jacques' apartment, really going through everything, and you see Cooper looking around, and he finds and again, this is simple. This isn't really anything neat, but it's something that might have gotten missed on an initial search. But he finds a copy of one of those adult magazines that they had briefly looked at earlier. Yeah, Flesh World. And he finds it like in the ceiling. We just see him kind of get a boosty up there, brings it down, and he goes through it. And what's good here is that, this stuff obviously existed. The show, while dark, does not actually use language or use nudity in it, but it still does a very good job of conveying a lot of sorrow, a lot of different things going on, a lot of emotions. So in here, when you're seeing Flesh World and you're seeing some of the descriptions and all that, it's not G-rated, and it's really kind of disgusting or whatever. And I don't know if when it's broadcast on regular TV back in the 90s, if you could read some of the stuff, but on the Blu-ray version I've got checking it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's definitely pornographic, the description. But it's kind of funny because we almost forget that there's like this little bromance between Sheriff Truman and Cooper, where Cooper's being sort of idolized, but not too much or whatever, but just they have an instant kind of liking for each other, or mutual respect. And he's like, oh, did you catch a picture of Leo's truck in the magazine? And of course they do find out that there was a second bit of letters going to the magazine, because the magazine is a go-between, and the other one is for Laura Palmer and Renette, so the two girls that were fallen. This ties into loose end that we kind of knew was there, but it makes it official now too. But yeah, just this scene was just the one that kind of propelled the plot a bit more forward here. But it was curious to me that they spent a long time explaining stuff too. So this is almost like filler, but it needed filler, if that makes sense.
Yeah, a lot of this scene is just an information dump. And
you said it much better than I did.
Yeah, it's just telling us what we already knew, pretty much. When they point out Leo's truck, we're like, okay, well, you finally joined us, so we learned that in episode 2. But yeah.
Well, do you think the show would work if they had at the beginning of the episode, if they go previously on Twin Peaks? It would totally break character, but all shows today, a lot of them do that. Previously on the blah, 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 and they give you a wrap down, which sometimes is needed, I think, because the writing sucks. But there's so much going on in the show here that, you're in the middle of it. You're able to kind of follow it. I think that's one of the strong suits here. You're right. It's an information dump, but it's done just perfectly, I think.
Yeah, if somebody joins like halfway through, this was in 91, right? So the best you could do is probably catch it on live TV was the best thing you could do. But if somebody was missing an episode, let's say, I feel like the show, at least thus far, even though it does have a necessary information dump, anybody can hop on. They could catch one episode and get hooked. And it kind of has that strong suit that a lot of shows don't have. You're right. A lot of shows now have to give a previously, and they don't just let the show speak for itself. They give you the dots that connect to the episode and say, okay, this is good. No, this show, no matter where you start or no matter where you join, there's always something that you're learning that has probably been said before at least once, but it's stuff that needs said so that you can understand.
Yeah, and I think too, one of the things I've mentioned before about shows is if one of the biggest, strongest things you can do is like a character, and everything else can suck. But if you care about the character, you care about what's going on here. Even though we kind of root for Cooper being an investigator because he's the one that drives it forward, I still feel like a sense of detachment from him. I'm more watching him, but I understand him. And with like 20 something characters that we've talked about and all the relationships, it can get really tough. But like I said, one of the strong writing things about this show is that I don't know that I'm not a big fan of James, obviously. I rag on him a little bit, but I like how I'm able to watch each of the characters and see how they develop and how genuine it seems, where I go, okay, what's happening here makes sense, even though if what they're doing is stupid, wrong, or immoral, or weak, or right on, or whatever. I get it. And that's tough because right now I'm not going, oh, I really love this character, or I really like that one. And that's really kind of how I feel about the show. And that's very hard to do, I think, for anything. Usually by this time I'd mostly be checked out. But walk us through the next couple of scenes, if you will. We get the Shelley Bobby breakfast scene, and then we get Big Ed meeting Norma right after that too, and which I think kind of ties in what I was just saying. What's your take on these?
Well, out of the two, I feel like the most important one is this first one. Shelley's making Bobby breakfast. We actually get some backstory on Shelley. Apparently, she dropped out of high school and married Leo when she was really young. And she still looks young, so it's pretty clear that we don't know exactly why they're together, because I guess when she dropped out, she just figured, hey, we're in love. And she actually says that he used to be so kind and considerate, but then once she married him, he revealed
Let the beatings begin. Yeah, I mean, you didn't see it coming from the left or from the right. I mean,
so after we get some information about basically Shelley, they keep throwing that gun around. She bought it like 2 episodes ago, hid it, showed Bobby last episode, and now it looks like they're starting to come up with a little plan. He's saying that if basically Leo came back, he would take that gun and say, Leo, you better treat this woman with respect. You beat her again and I will shoot you dead. They hear a car door out front, and immediately he's like, hide the gun, and he runs into the closet because he doesn't want to get caught. Yeah, he's a coward. And it's actually Deputy Andy. He comes by and asks about Leo, ask him where exactly he is, and they really want to talk to him. And pretty much basically have a nice day, walks out, and Bobby comes back out, and they're okay, we're in the clear. They start kissing against the wall, and that's when the phone rings. Shelley picks it up, and it's Leo calling and asking if anyone is asking for him, and she says no, which I suppose she has no reason to actually care for Leo. He's given her a reason not to care for a long time. And while she's basically on the call, Bobby slowly places the gun in her hand, and you can tell exactly what they're intending to do with Leo, at least eventually. After that, pretty much we see Ed. Tanker comes in, and Norma comes by. She wanted to basically let him know that Hank is getting out, and is saying how hopeful he looked. And she asks if Ed talked to Nadine, crazy eye patch lady, about them yet. He basically says, well, the thing about Nadine is that she isn't well. And Norma pretty much says she understands what he's saying, and goes on about how this town kind of gets you stuck, and tells him basically not to call her, at least not for a while. And she gives a final "I love you" before walking away. So we have the two waitresses from the Double R dealing with the men in their life in a way.
Yeah, I think, I have to say it about Shelley. I mean, they look like a classic couple together. They're both young, extremely good looking. She's just such a natural beauty. You have not seen, of course, season 2, which was after this, which went from 90, I think, to 91, and then of course season 3, which is on Showtime a few years ago. When we may end up tackling all those, but in the Showtime season 3, which is a continuation, of course, has a lot of the same characters, but unfortunately, of course, with time, the passage of time, some actors have passed, and some may have chosen not to have been on the show. But I believe Shelley's character is actually still on the show, and she's an older woman, obviously, but kind of like Norma here, just a natural beauty, looks great there too. So whenever I watch this show here, or rewatching it now, I go, well, is Norma just the older version of what Shelley's going to end up being, or not, or what? So there's an interesting dynamic there to me, because they, like you say, they both have problems with the men in their lives. But to me, again, even though everyone's cheating, and it's cheating, of course, everyone looks as morally wrong, we almost kind of understand why they're doing it. We don't know why Leo started being bad. We haven't seen him be bad to her, although he's been verbally abusive. So there's this part of Shelley that I go, well, if she dropped out in the 11th grade to be with him, and she's only been married for a couple of years, then there's got to be something else to her character. I don't know what it is, but whatever. She liked the nice guy that had the hot car and good money, I guess. But it's one of those things where I'm looking at these characters going, like I say, I don't hate them, even if they're making moral things. You really get the sense of like Ed talking with Norma about their respective spouses, and they realize that while they think they love each other and say it, Norma seems to be the one that seems hurt about saying his wife's not right or whatever. And she's like, yeah, just don't call me for a while, because they're both basically in the same position. How are they going to handle theirs? So maybe they're being the mature version of what it's like to have an affair, rather than these other two women that, or Shelley in this case, it's the young one that isn't going to handle it well. I don't know. It's weird, because I get a genuine vibe from all of them, and they're all doing something bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, listen, Bobby is a wuss, but I wouldn't call him a woman. That's insulting to the women of the show.
Well, I'm slipping because Bobby has an important scene later on. All right, so we get a quick scene next with Audrey, because she had told Cooper in the morning when he was being a grouchy bear about, hey, I got a job, and it's at the store, and now I want to help you with the case. So she goes to the department store, and the guy's like, oh, okay, and he seems genuine about helping her out. But she manipulates her way using her femme fataleness, her sexuality, basically, about how to do it. And it's pretty ballsy on her part, but she gets what she wants. She basically blackmails him. It's kind of mean. It's not a big deal, and it seems almost playful rather than the way things are taken in today's society. But she's like, no, I'm going to end up there. And then we get like another little quick scene here too, because it's like a touch on all the relationships of everybody. It's where, this episode was going great until, of course, we see Donna and James get together, because they're supposed to be falling in love. And James, basically was like, yeah, I lied to you about, my dad, and my mom, and, they're both bad people, but there can't be any secrets. He's one of those kind of clowns. So this is almost fast forward worthy for me, because I just don't like James. I know he's supposed to be a good guy in the biker gang, but the Bunkhouse Boys, but I'm just not crazy about it. What was your take on these couple scenes?
Well, Audrey, she has one of the best scenes of this episode. You're absolutely right, except I don't feel it was quite so playful towards the end there, because whenever she starts talking to him, he's like, I'm so happy to have you here. I've talked to your dad about it, and we think we want you starting gift wrap, and you can just start there, work your way up, just like you said you wanted to. And she's like, well, about that. Because she wants to work behind the perfume counter. Because that's where
Laura
and Ronette worked before. It tells him that she's going to work there, even though he's trying to dodge it, saying, "Oh, I don't know if you should handle retail." Whenever he learns it's specifically the perfume counter that she wants, obviously there's something going on there.
Well, did you get that vibe from him? I got it that he was clueless. I mean, I may be wrong, but I don't think he was saying, "Hey, don't want to work there because I know who you are, and I don't want you to get recruited to be, a woman that works at One-Eyed Jacks." If you know what I'm saying, I didn't get that vibe from him at all. Are you saying you did?
Oh, I absolutely. He knows something,
Okay.
because his entire way of acting, he was so happy to have her there, and whenever he was talking with her, he was so full of energy. But as soon as she brought up retail, and he dimmed down a little bit. Oh, you want to? Okay, well that's not a problem. Do you have any experience? And she says specifically that she wants to work behind the perfume counter, and he's making all the excuses that he can to try to keep her from there. And there's obviously a reason for that. But she basically tells him, "I'm going to work behind that counter. Otherwise, I'm going to rip my dress up and say that you made a pass at me." And that's obviously a little more than a pass, but she absolutely owns him right there, and she gets what she wants. As for James, you're right. His entire exchange just, when can this be over? With this information we did not need. There's nothing about this that seems important. He goes on about his mother. My mother's an alcoholic, and she goes around sleeping with strange men. It's very a boohoo situation. I wrote down as soon as the scene was done, nothing important.
Unless we want to raise the single mom alert bell, but I didn't really want to for this because it's so small it doesn't seem to be relevant. Yeah.
No, I mean she does.
He didn't have good parents. That's bottom line.
Yeah, she basically does what his dad does, except with music.
Yeah, exactly. Well, after this, there's go ahead.
Well, I was going to go head to the next scene. It starts out, they're getting donuts, passing them around, and we get to see some of the letters to Ronette's ad. And they look for another ad, and this actually is one that has Laura. And you can't exactly tell. It doesn't, I believe it doesn't show the face. And so whenever they're looking, Harry's like, "Do you see any identifying marks?" Because he's wondering why. He can tell it's exactly Laura. But he says, no, it's the red drapes, like in his dreams.
Yeah.
And also on one of the cabinet doors, Jacques had pictures all over the place. One of them was a place with red drapes. That's where Cooper really wants to find. But they don't go to look. I believe they don't go to look for that one. They're going to look for the brothers' cabins, Jock and whatever the dead guy's name is.
Bernie, I believe. His brother. Yeah. The one that was killed, but they hadn't found his body yet. That we know as an observer. Yeah. Yeah, because apparently it's pretty close. So it's neat because, we saw his dream. It was real trippy, but then we had a few episodes where that kind of went away. Like, was that real? And that's one of the things that happens in the show is you get a little bit of something that, like you said earlier, may not be relevant, but maybe it becomes relevant later on. Don't know. But there's something about this, with this dream and all that they do a great job of doing, because all this other stuff's just, like you say, information dumps. The real push in this episode is the actual investigation to me. It's not always that way, but here it is. The next scene's real quick. It's just where Maddy goes in the diner, and James and Donna have concocted the scheme where they want Maddy to basically join their group to look for this secret hiding place, which is a convenient thing of writing for the episode, which I felt was a little weak or whatever. And Maddy's like, well, okay, or whatever. I think I know of a place and all that too. And yeah, she discovers something a little bit later. But of course, the neat shot here is not what got discussed. It only takes a minute. The camera pans away, and you get Hank sitting at the table, literally right behind them. And he's got coffee, and you could tell he overheard it. And Hank, as much as said Leo seems to be somewhat intelligent and evil, Hank seems to be, like genius level evil. This actor, whoever is doing it, I'm not too familiar with him. Great job. He's just sitting there, and he's got the little keychain that has the pair of threes, the domino on it that we had saw earlier. But the other thing with this scene here, too, is it kind of transitions. I mean, it's the same scene, but you get where Norm and Shelley, they'd went out for like a little mani-pedi girlfriend time or whatever, which is kind of cute. You can see them bonding. It makes sense. And their hairstyles, like the 50s style. I mean, it's really done up and all that. I don't think they look better, but they look like they look done up. So it is what it is. I like that 80s kind of crazy style that they had, or that diner look. But again, this actor does such a great job here of just, having that far away look in his eye while he's sipping a coffee as the kids leave, basically. And then when Norma comes in, he's basically saying, I just want to earn my way into your heart. And I know it's going to be tough, but I at least hope you'd let me try. She's like, yeah, you can wash dishes. So she capitulates or whatever like that. It's like, well, can I finish my coffee? So it's this game of who's in charge here. And that's obviously Hank. Hank has the spell over her. And I'm thinking this is deliciously evil. It feels really creepy, but instead of lingering on it, we get the split second of our weekly invitation to love scene on there, where the one guy's getting beat up by the other dude. Somebody's watching him or whatever.
Dexter is getting hit. I can't remember who Dexter is supposed to be.
I don't know
there
the
are
name on there. I
so
didn't bother
many
listening to him. Yeah, I just it's one guy beats up the other guy and somebody laughs evilly. It's kind of funny.
But he kind of looks like Leo if you look. At least that's the vibe I got whenever I was watching. You're absolutely right. Another thing you notice, and it's something really stupid. As soon as Madeline and James and Donna are all sitting there, they basically say they want to tell her something, and James goes to get her like a cherry Coke. When he finally comes back with the cherry Coke, she has it in front of her, and she's talking. Then they all get up to leave. They didn't touch their drinks for 1 second.
I'm not going to lie to you. I wrote that down. That's one of my biggest pet peeves in any movie or shows is when you order a coffee or this or that. I don't care if you don't pay for the paycheck. I can let that go. But not even a stupid sip. You're absolutely right. That drives me nuts. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, it was just so stupid. But that camera shot was absolutely... I feel like it was one of the neatest shots of this season thus far, because we're just panning in and we're like, okay, what are we looking for? And whenever it does that swerve to reveal Hank sitting there playing with a domino, waiting for Norma, it was very interesting, I feel. As for Invitation to Love, I wish they had some more information, because I really felt like this is a key to the world that we're watching right now. The theories that Anne, is that her name?
I don't even know.
In this episode at all. The front desk clerk at the sheriff's office.
Oh, Lucy.
Lucy. Her whole theory from 2 episodes ago, I'm still on that. I'm still watching for it, because
yeah,
it feels like it's the key to the world going on. And you're absolutely right. This is a soap opera mixed with a crime thriller, and it just blends so well. That's pretty much all I have to say about those, at least.
Yeah, now to me, I think the next scene is the best scene in this episode. Although there's a few snippets of something afterwards, and I'll talk about once we get there, because we're halfway through the episode. But this next scene's interesting because you get Major Briggs, which is Bobby's father. He's getting a little bit more airtime, not a lot, but no, I've noticed him when he's come on. I say he's an interesting character. They're all in here with family counseling with Doctor Jacoby, and Jacoby basically is like, "Well, I want to talk to Bobby by himself," and so they start talking, and he basically says, "Hey, what happened the first time you and Lorna made love? Did you cry?" And you're like, okay, I don't get where this guy's going because he's a bit of a goof. He's like saying she laughed at you. So basically, it's like you feel like he's pushing Bobby's buttons to get something out of him, basically to break him down, which he gives you the vibe that he's just a whack job psychiatrist that wants to boink Laura, which I still think that's true. But the thing is with Bobby, and this is what I kind of like about his character, is he starts crying, he breaks down, and he doesn't know how to deal with it. And there's a really good line in here I wrote down, something along those lines. She said, people told me they were always try to be good, but they end up being sick, rotten type people. And basically she gets disappointed whenever she tries to help the world because something bad always seems to happen, and herself included, because it was alluded to that she has a dark side. And I've said before, that's definitely a theme you can see in the show, both positive and negative sides of people, what they're doing. He mentions how Laura basically got her to sell the drugs and all that, and Bobby just totally loses it, breaking down, crying. And the doctor's walking around, he's digesting all this, and you go, oh, he's being a little evil bastard. But up to that point, like I say, I think this episode's been decent. It's been okay. It's not been stellar compared to some of the others. It's not been bad. I think an episode or two ago we started to pivot. It seemed like more of a filler episode. But before we continue past this scene here, I wanted to get your take on it because I think it's one of the more powerful pieces, like I say, in this episode.
Well, whenever it starts the scene, Bobby's parents are there, and they're talking about Bobby, of course. But I didn't realize Bobby was sitting right there when they were saying these things. And yet, his father is definitely the formal, got to be firm with him. You have to absolutely make sure that they understand. But that still felt a little unnecessary. And they really wanted to basically rant on about Bobby, even whenever Jacoby was trying to push him out of the room. And as soon as they're gone, Jacoby's like, let's cut the crap. And you're absolutely right. He says, the first time you made love, and Bobby's like, what the hell are you doing, man? Why would I tell you this? And I feel like he already knows. See, I think he's using information that Laura gave him because she was his patient, to basically...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He's up to no good.
So the crying, the laughing, it's not that he's offended. He's more shocked and ashamed. And he just gives in. And he goes on about Laura. And you're absolutely right. The final bit of this, when Bobby basically says Laura kind of wanted to corrupt people because that's how she felt. And I believe that was actually Jacoby who said that. And Bobby basically, yes, absolutely. Amen. I feel like this is the first time we get a take on Laura that isn't, she was wonderful, I miss her so much, oh God. And we knew Bobby didn't love her, but it seems like he has good reason not to love her.
But that's where you and I disagree. I felt he was genuine about it, though. I do.
Oh no, he was genuine about what he was saying. Absolutely.
No, I think he genuinely loved her. I think he did. I do think so. Homecoming queen and quarterback. I do believe so.
Oh well, I didn't get that vibe. I got that maybe at one time he did love her.
Yeah.
But once she basically used him for drugs and stuff, got him into his situation now. It left that, and that's why he was able to kind of, in the very first episode of this season, He's more afraid that they're going to accuse him of her murder than the fact that she was murdered. And that's I feel like that sticks even through here. Yeah, I don't think he, at least at this point, is in love with her.
Well, maybe not anymore, but they always say, you always remember your first, and it's special when no matter what happens and all that stuff. But we'll see how it plays out. But I do kind of like his character a little bit. Don't know if I like him, but I think he's actually taking it out on Shelley and saying, okay, basically dominating her because he's doing with Shelley what he wanted to do with Laura and it wasn't able to. And so I just think that's the dynamic of the relationships. And that's the genius of the show to me, is they make you think about these things and all that with characters. You go, well, it's kind of a bad dude running drugs and doesn't seem to give a crap about her if she died. To your point, I can see where somebody would successfully argue that. But another thing I think that makes the show spectacular, and I mentioned it before, that the TV pilot, incredible hook. Second episode, solid follow-up. I thought by the third episode, you're drawn in. And then we talked about how another episode seemed to kind of pivot because we're halfway through. This episode seems like it's kind of waking up and having a cup of coffee as it builds towards the finish. But there's certain things in some of the episodes that you've brought up and I've brought up and I'm sure other people have thought about that make the show special. And I'll mention this more than once before we finish this episode. And I wrote down here specifically after this Dr. Jacoby scene, after Bobby's crying and all that, you get the main theme. The music is phenomenal. I love long camera shots, transition type shots, especially nature shots, and this show shows you a lot of them. But there's a really nice shot here, which I think sets you up for a shot later. I call it the eagle transition scene. You get this eagle or bird flying, and you get to see the Twin Peaks, and it takes a few moments. They're in no rush to do a quick cut to something else that's going on. And this show, especially this episode, and they've had different directors in there, I think did a tremendous job of just allowing you to kind of end on a emotional note, go into something else here too, because instead of a sad or an emotional scene like this with Bobby, however you may feel about it, we get to where they're walking up and this music's playing and it's in the afternoon. So you get the sense of the day changing as the episode goes on. So we're nearing the end of the episode. We finally get some serious screen time for the log lady, who invites them in for tea. Cooper doesn't know what the hell is going on. This is a great scene. I'm going to let you take care of this thing, and then I'll just comment on it. So let's talk about the log lady spiritual tea ceremony.
A little bit, log man. We actually get some information about how
she's carrying a log too, if you've never seen it.
Oh wow, really? The log lady has a log?
I talked this out as if somebody's never saw the show before or have heard it. So I'm saying she literally carries a log like a child, like a baby in her arm the entire time. The few episodes she's had like some screen time, yes. And so we know that. I know you're not being sarcastic, but I'm just saying that to the person that's never heard it before or seen it.
Well, whenever they walk up to this cabin that they find, they all have their guns out and they're sneaking because they're thinking they found the brother's place. They're walking up, and then suddenly, with a turn, log lady comes out. He's like, "Oh well, it's about time." She's got her log in her arm, and she's like, "Come on in, log don't judge." So she offers tea, cookie, and then she's going on about sugar and how the owls won't see them in there. She's getting that, and she keeps saying random little things. Shut your eyes and you'll burst into flames. The fish aren't running. And she mixes it into words that are usually responses.
She just has this whack job vibe to her. But as I've mentioned before, I get a certain, I don't know if a cult is the right word, but a certain sense of spiritualness about this show here too, because it seems like Hawk, who's with them, seems to understand her as well as Truman, because obviously Cooper's the fish out of water in this particular scene.
So we actually do get a little more information about Log Lady. She had a husband He was a logger, a logging man, and he seemed to die the day after the wedding. They weren't even married. They weren't even married for a week, and he died the night right after that, which is traumatic. Absolutely, I don't understand how that puts a log in your arm and makes you a spinster for the rest of your life. But I suppose it's better than 15 cats. But getting serious now. Enough ragging on the log lady. She picks up the log again after she's served them all tea and cookies and stuff, and she says, "You can ask it now." So Dale leans in, and he asks pretty much what happened the night Lord Palmer died, and the next words are like they're one-word responses most of the time. Dark, laughing, 2 men, 2 girls, flashlights, dark pressing in on her, the quiet, owls flying, footsteps, 1 man passes by, screams, voice belonging to a girl, and then the owls are silent. And that's pretty much how the scene ends as soon as she gives her information. And I guess it's tough to piece together. It's not as clear as Cooper's dream, I would say, which wasn't clear at all. But it's information. And, some of the facts do match up. 2 girls passing by, and as soon as this scene ends, we have them walking outside, and they're talking about this information. They're like, okay, well, 2 girls, that could be Ron, Ed, and Laura. 2 guys, could that be Jock and his brother? And they're basically
it's just
trying
like
to figure
being
it
a
out.
cool reader. It's like them taking what she says, which you're near water. I see water. Yeah, I was near a sink. You can always put yourself near water. It's one of these cold reading things that I looked at and I go, they seem to accept it as it's being genuine. And, I don't think it's meant to be funny. I don't think it comes across as funny, but it's more absurd in a really bizarre way, which didn't seem possible after Cooper's dream. But I think the thing that allows it to be somewhat serious, if it felt that way too, if you weren't laughing at it, is I mentioned before here too. You get this really emotional scene with Bobby crying, and then this bird transition scene where they play the music and it kind of puts you in a certain mood, and then you get this sort of seriousness of the log lady that she's an oracle, okay, and she's using the log to divine stuff from the other side, which we've seen that Cooper hasn't dreamed. It's been mentioned out in the woods there's stuff. So they're kind of hinting about previous, not cultures necessarily, but the history of Twin Peaks, or that whole age-old what's in the forest, beyond the trees, we don't know, and something dark, something sinister. And of course that's where they're trying to find is where did this dark, sinister thing in reality really, really happen. And we'll find out here in a moment that they do it. But the scene I wanted to mention as we transition into the next scene, and it's another little cutaway, just like this bird scene here. I don't know why. Maybe it's the timing of it. Sometimes you get like a chunk of a film for a moment or two that you just go, it peaked. For me in this episode, maybe the series, is just this one little scene where, like you said, they're walking through the woods. They're not really talking too much. They've digested the information. It's taking on a serious tone that we're close. We are close to the end of discovering what's really behind all this. And they take their time through it. And while they're doing it and they get past the log lady and all that, there's another little scene of, it's a raven, I believe, which is one of the smartest birds there is. and all of them are really quiet. They're really sullen. It's almost near the evening. They hear some music playing, but for some reason, I remember at the time when the show came out, everyone talked about this little spot, and when I watched it, I had no idea what they were talking about. But there's something emotional, and again, it may sound silly, but for me watching it, when you get to this particular scene here, the build-up of it, they're standing in front of the exact same photo of Cooper fallen with the red drapes, and they're looking at it. They've got their guns. They know this could be very deadly of a situation they could find themselves in, or who knows what else they'll find, but they're far away from what the small town is, so they're not in the real world right now. They are all alone on an island, and you feel it while they're walking through these woods. But then there's something about this raven, and it's just a close-up zoom shot of them, just kind of like a side profile, blinking and cawing or whatever like that, while the music's playing. And I don't know how to explain it, but sometimes, like I say, there's moments in the show that it just reaches a climax of a point, and it's not the end of the episode or a dramatic dying off at the end of the episode or anything stupid like that. It's just something emotional about watching it. And that's why I've said before that it's hard to say how good this show is when you say, well, I kind of like Cooper, but he's not the main character. He is one out of like 20 to 30 characters that I'm watching, and I'm entertained by almost all the angles. I'm curious to see where they go, and I know I don't know everything yet, and that's what makes it really, really good and entertaining, that they're able to do that in such a way where really, like I say, other than Donna, I'm like most everybody I care about watching, but just it sounds weird, but I want to spend a moment or two on it because I just still remember going, oh, I remember the episode where, and then the Raven was watching them. And I'm sure there's an allegory for that literature wise that, I could probably research, and I haven't done it, but I just want it to be a spellbinding minute or two sequence in here, with the one, I think foreshadowing of the bird and the log lady giving them all the spiritual stuff. This is like, they're like on a whole nother plane of existence to me before they go in the cabin. So let me stop flapping my gums here and let you talk about that, and then the scene where they discover the cabin and what's in it.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. The transition is one of the. I feel like it honestly connects to the first one. I think this is the same bird that we saw flying before. I know it looked, at least from a distance, more like a larger bird, but given its angle and how we're watching it, I really think it's the same bird. So it's the same kind of area. I get the same vibe from it that I got before.
Well, let me ask you this, because, I'm a little bit of an outdoorsman. I'm certainly no hunter pro or anything like that at all, but I do like to spend time outdoors. I like to go hiking and all that stuff. And I'm not honestly sure if you do, but I do know certain things, like obviously you follow running water because it's flowing downhill. Usually there's civilization there if you're lost. Everybody always watches those adventure shows. They're all cool and stuff. But the reality of it is ravens being really smart, that if you see them, sometimes they can lead you away. They can follow you. They're really intelligent beings. So I go, is it nothing more than it's just a smart bird that kind of knows what's going on and it's watching these humans? Did it know something evil happened? I guess my question for you is, did you put something allegorical on the whole bird, following them, watching them, guiding them, spirit animal type thing? Or did you just say, oh, that's a cool shot?
I didn't. I honestly didn't feel that.
Okay. That's cool. I might be doing too much projecting. That could be me.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, if you did, that's great. I mean, I didn't get it, but it gave something to you, and that's the good thing about watching shows with other people, because other people always have different views on things, and it helps build your opinion on a show.
Okay, so they find the cabin. Walk us through that.
Yes, so whenever they first started hearing the music, I was trying to make sure that it wasn't actually the music of the show, because I was like, wait, do they hear what I hear?
Right.
As they approach, you're absolutely right. This could be a deadly situation. The cabin that was in the photo, they go up, and I don't even think they knock. They just kick it in, and they go in to the room. And it's clearly set up. they have the drapes there, long, flowing, exactly like the picture that supposedly Laura's in. We see this record player, and actually, as soon as they arrive, it ends and restarts itself. And then we also get Waldo the bird and a camera set up. The camera has some film in it.
Yeah.
There's some blood upon the floor.
Not a lot.
And yep. And then the cuckoo clock starts going, but nothing's coming out of the doors. And so Dale goes over and he kind of jimmies it open. And what comes out? A chipped poker chip from One-Eye Jacks. And there's one note that I forgot to mention. When Cooper basically goes into the room, he says there's always music in the air, which is something from his dream.
Yeah, this kill room, whatever you want to call it, obviously they weren't necessarily killed here per se, but it's where they were taking pictures of women against their will and some seedy stuff is what it's alluding to. And it's dark. It does a great job of not even showing you everything and just letting you see it. I mean, it's not the glorified kill room that you'd get on a show like Dexter, for example. It's definitely dark, and yeah, it's pretty creepy, actually. It fits. You know, like I said, we go from Log Lady to this in like a span of a couple of minutes. It's like, wow, really good.
Yeah. And I feel like this honestly gave us more than Log Lady did, but then again, we haven't had enough time to actually sit on her information and get things. There's one note that I forgot to mention there. As they hear the music, they act as, like I said before, they're talking about the information they got from Log Lady. They ask who's the third man, because she said that there were 2 men, 2 girls, and then 1 man passing by. And we're still trying to build the exact scenario, what happened. But afterwards, we go from here to a woman sitting in a dark room we imagine it's the same place that most of these scenes take place in, and she's just smoking. And we instantly cut to Catherine and Pete, our favorite married couple, right?
I mean, cheating on each other, a fair couple, yes. Yeah, she's Piper Laurie. She does such a good job in here making me hate her. I mean, she does. It's great. I can't be mad at her, but it's like, who would want to even spend time with her? I'm like, this guy has to be such a jerk. But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So basically, after insulting each other for a minute, lay off the sauce tonight, Catherine. And she's saying how, oh, I might have a few of these, and you might even look good to me. And she goes off. We get Leland arriving. He's actually dressed up, and
just know it's not going to end well.
Yeah, you know it's not going to end well. But we also get Heba and Jerry, and this is the relationship we've all been looking for. I mean, just look at it. He clearly is deeply in love. I'm getting more of a connection between these two than Donna and James. I'm far more entertained. We have Ben there. It's his party. This is the event that they basically set up for the Norwegians. And he's joking around with him, and Catherine comes up and spills some champagne upon like his shoe, and we actually get the shot, and he just turns his head and he looks at her. He's like, "Excuse me, one moment." He takes her aside and says, "Give me 2 minutes, and I'll meet you in my office." And she looks at him and says, "Hell hath no fury," but basically goes ahead to the office. We have Audrey she's there at the party. And I mean, that is a place she lives. But we get to see her go behind the wall again, in between the places. And she basically has little spots that she can go all around this hotel and look in on the rooms. She looks in between and sees a little hole into the office, and we get Ben coming in and Catherine there. Catherine's asking what from the last episode when they were sleeping together. He went to go take a shower and a chip fell. He's asking him about why he has a chip from One-Eyed Jacks, and he's claiming, "Oh, it's Jerry. He gave it to me. It's a good luck charm. That's all." And she's slapping him, and she does it a few times. And he's like, "Are you done?" She goes ahead, gets 2 more in, and she says, "No, I'm done." And once she finishes beating on it, he basically pulls her into his embrace and lays her out on the desk. She wants to burn the mill that night. She says, "Let's just get it over with. Let's burn it now." And Ben is saying, no, we have to give Josie one more chance. And without another transition, we get Audrey basically laughing. Is there anything here that it's more of things coming together rather than anything we didn't know already?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I mean, Audrey's just doing the spying, so it's fun watching her play detective. It's interesting to see that we know Laura's father is going to break down again, which he does in the stupid dance thing. And it's just, it is what it is. I mean, I think the only thing I had remaining here on my notes was that, you mentioned the log lady, kind of going back to that a little bit. Because I don't know that this show's dramatically this way, but she mentioned before, when you had described how the log lady, when she was younger, had met her husband who died quite recently after the wedding, the day after or whatever it was. She talked about meeting the devil in the forest, a fire or something like that. And it made me think biblically of, the burning bush and Moses and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if there's any particular religious angle in here too, because, obviously everybody allegedly is amoral or doing things they probably shouldn't be doing, if you lived in a purely Puritan society. But that said, everybody seems genuine about it. Catherine, who, is just evil, she wants the mill burned. She seems like she still really likes Leland boning her, and it's like, okay, that's cool, but the only nice guy's her husband, and that's it so far, because we've already found out that Josie here is kind of in league with him a little bit. We thought she was the innocent one here too, so it's like, you effing got me there. I see what you did there, Twin Peaks. All right, +1 for you. But no, it's just that the episode kind of ends physically where it started, at the hotel, but there at night at the lodge. And overall, I mean, I would say, like I say, some fantastic scenes in here. Not a lot going on, some plot development that's kind of neat. Nothing that really sticks out other than some transition scenes I thought were fantastic. I really gravitate towards Audrey's character a lot, but the women, it's like, gosh, they're almost all femme fatales. The guys are like putty in their hands. I mean, it's great. I mean, I can't say I like a lot of soap operas, but this one's definitely working so far. What about you? Any final thoughts on this particular episode?
I feel like Audrey gets a bit of growth here towards the end, because sometimes, though she is an intriguing character, she can come off as kind of phony, because she's trying to manipulate people around her. But whenever, I'm pretty certain she's the one who starts the music and gets Leland crying and dancing, and they start, like, he's holding the sides of his head and he's whining, and they start, oh yeah, this is just a dance move, because they're trying to.
Yeah, the Icelanders there have no idea, so they just start mocking it. It's absurd. Audrey, yeah, I agree.
Audrey starts crying, and
she does.
Yeah, she did it, but she doesn't want Leland basically mocked and stuff like that. She's just trying to sabotage her father's business.
Yeah,
she wants attention. I feel like we do need to go over one more thing.
Okay.
Madeline calls Donna.
Oh, yeah. This is important. You're right.
Whenever they were young, Laura hid cigarettes in her bedpost. So Maddy went and she unscrewed it and found a tape in its place. Sarah Palmer starts calling out for Leland, so she's trying to rush off the phone. She says that she'll meet James tomorrow and asks them to bring a tape recorder so that they can listen to the tape. You're right about Josie and Ben.
She's another Ben.
Oh yeah, but Lucy was right. They're screwing over Catherine, and it's honestly something you should have expected. Leo gets shot by Shelley after he gets home and starts beating on her, basically. But
we skipped that scene. I remembered it, but yeah, good catch.
That's only after Leo gets jumped by Hank, who says, "You think you can go ahead and screw me over? No, you can't. You do what you're told and nothing more." And he goes away after that. So we kind of understand why Leo is so, I don't know.
Pissy.
He's taking out, he's taking out his stuff on his woman. And finally, Shelley gets a shot on him, and we see the lights flicker, and she only does one shot. She drops the gun, and she's like, "Oh no!" And we hear the door closing, so we don't get a final look at him.
Yeah.
And the last part of this episode isn't important.
Yes, it is. It's all yours.
Really?
The very last scene.
We get Dale walk into the room, and he notices his door is open. He pulls out his gun, and he quickly opens it, holds it out, and he can make out a figure. He says, "Turn on the light next to you," and slowly. And she does. And it's Audrey in the bed, and she's upset, clearly, and she's begging him not to make her leave. And that's the end of the episode.
Yeah, I like it. They need to tease that out longer, but she's definitely ended up in bed, so we'll see what happens. The woman scored, we'll never know how that's going to play out. Yeah, good stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's 2 more episodes left, so I'm going, okay, how is this going to end? But we'll see if it goes out with a whimper or with a bang or to be continued or not or what. But since there's a whole nother season after this, it'll be interesting to see how Who Killed Laura Palmer plays out. All right, guys, ladies, go ahead.
Well, this episode ends with whimper. We'll see if the next one starts with a bang.
Well, yeah, there you go. Oh, that's true. I mean, they've been pretty good at, like, say, drawing you in with the theme and all that. So I appreciate that about this show. And yeah, it's got such a good rewatch too. You can really get sucked into the show. And sometimes you watch and you go, okay, that was cool, that was neat. But would I watch it again? So rewatchability, I think, can help, but doesn't always apply to shows, even if they're really great ones. But this one, definitely, you don't rewatch it all the time, because then you feel compelled to watch the entire thing because you feel like you're alive in this world. And again, can't stress enough what a big deal this show was, much like Kolchak was for fans of the X-Files and other shows about being in. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Season 1, Episode 6 of Twin Peaks, one of the best TV shows of all time, certainly Season 1 anyway. Thanks for listening. Thanks for checking it out. Catch you next week when we actually review Season 7, our next last episode of the first season of Twin Peaks, the original show. Any final thoughts there you want to give out?
Nope. I think we've got it all covered.
All right, well, bring your damn cup of coffee, and everybody has an invitation to love for next week. Have a good night for everybody. As always, stay extreme.